Climate scientists tell us we need to limit global heating to 1.5 degrees, otherwise we are getting in really difficult territories. And our assessment for the industry and their plans is given that the industry is on track to sell more than double, over 700 million cars. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Hi everyone, my name is Jinsu Park. I am a climate change researcher. I am a person who believes that climate change is a very critical and important crisis for our life. So today, we are going to talk about the Greenpeace report, internal combustion engine bubble, ice bubble report.
That sucks. Interfering with fossil fuels. I think we collectively should do something about this.
Hi, Benjamin. So could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Benjamin Stefan. Worked for Greenpeace Germany as a transport campaigner, and before that I was also a climate scientist at the university in Hamburg in Germany.
Okay, nice to meet you. You participated this report, right?
Yes, I'm one of the co-authors of the report.
Could you explain a little bit specifically, what is the core topics of this report?
Climate scientists tell us we need to limit global heating to 1.5 degrees, otherwise we are getting in really difficult territories, significant consequences, and for that we have a limited carbon budget. And then it's also clear that we have to transition different sectors and also the car sector. And we wanted to know, so how many more internal combustion engine cars can we actually put on the road before we are beyond that mark? And how do the plans that the car industry, the big car companies like Hyundai, Kia here in Korea or VW in Germany, how do they stack up against what we still have available?
So if I understand correctly, so they define the carbon budget for 1.5 Celsius degree, right? So could you explain more about the carbon budget?
CO2 concentration in the atmosphere that determines how the global temperature is and will develop in the future, and the more the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere increases, the higher the temperature goes. And from then you can model with relative accuracy how much more carbon can we emit to limit global warming, global heating to a certain temperature. And scientists have told us we shouldn't go beyond 1.5 degrees because then we have really dangerous consequences. And this is actually a table from the latest IPCC report, and you can see here the temperature levels, so they calculated for 1.5 degree, 1.7 degree, 2 degrees, and that what you see here, these numbers, this is gigatons of CO2 emissions. So really a lot of CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
And you see here, it's with likelihoods. So what we used was this number here, 400 gigatons until 2050 carbon emissions. That's the remaining budget. And if we stay at 400 or below, we have a chance of 67%, so 2/3 chance to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees.
So it's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
So if you want to,
2/3.
okay.
If you want to increase your chances of staying below that threshold, you go up here 83%. Then obviously the amount of emissions drastically is reduced. So what we did as well then use these 400 gigatons that we have for all sectors, looking at how much does transport use today. And what do the other sectors, how quickly can you decarbonize each sector? And then if you look at the transport sector, cars and vans part, you have 53 gigatons that remain. And that we used then for modeling, how can we transition the fleet of cars that's on the world? So we do not go beyond this 53 gigatons. We can, if you use the same assumptions about how long cars are driven, how far they are driven, then we can add Another 315 million cars, internal combustion engine cars, sell them. But then we have to transition to 100% battery electric vehicles.
So in this report, I think the report evaluates the automobile manufacturers plan to reduce the internal combustion engines cars between 2035 to 2040. So, but in the report, I think you argue that they need to stop sales of the ICE engines just by 2013. Why 2013?
So no longer than 2030, because as I mentioned, the cars will be on the road for 15 years, so you have that tail end of their emissions will always be there. So we have to stop selling them by 2030. 315 million cars is what the climate scientists said, okay, this is still possible. And our assessment for the industry and their plans is given that the industry is on track to sell more than double that, so over 700 million cars. Yeah, that's a big problem. So it's not a little gap, because it might sound, okay, 5 years earlier or later, that's not a big deal, but it actually is if you look into the amount of cars that are produced in that time, or also if you then, they will emit CO2, a huge sort of overshoot of CO2, around 50 gigatons. Yeah, that's significant. That's more than the entire budget that we have for all the buildings and heating in buildings for until we have to become carbon neutral. And it's quite clear if they would really sell these cars, we would have a real problem with the climate, and we could not make to stay below the 1.5 degree limit.
Okay, so to sum up, I think even though we stop selling the cars just by 2030, this is the minimum requirement, right?
Yes, this is, we have to reach this. You can see the charts actually here. So the green line that you see here, this is what the climate scientists said, okay, this is the number of cars that we still can sell. So these are cumulative sales, so they go up until 2030, and then there's no additional sales thereafter. And the blue bars here, this is already a very optimistic scenario based on the current plans of the car manufacturers. So you can see this huge gap that they are planning on selling more than twice as many cars than what is possible or what is needed to stay below 1.5 degrees.
Yeah, it looks double.
Governments limit the sales here, and then anybody who's too slow in transitioning will lose money because they have looking at stranded assets or market share. If we don't manage that, then we are looking at a significant, let's call it a carbon bump